All right, we're very happy to have with us today in our first ever episode. We have pianist, composer, member of the United States Army Field Band, the Jazz Ambassadors, Anthony Pocetti. Hello,
Hello,
welcome.
good to be here.
So I think the most important thing to talk about first is that you're a member of the Jazz Ambassadors, the Army Field Band. You tour the country, base and the world too, right? Playing with the band.
That's right. We're heading out in 2 days on our fall tour.
You were in New York, New Jersey, the jazz capital of the world, working in so many groups and stuff. What made you decide to just say, okay, I'm going to go join the army and play with them? You think what was behind that?
Well, I guess it was 8, 9, 10 years ago when I started looking into the military bands. I've been in the Jazz Ambassadors for 7 years, and it wasn't my first military band I auditioned for, but I uh, I remember getting an email with a flyer about the job from somebody. I think it was the Air Force Band, and I auditioned for that one. So I don't know. I was at a point in my life where I was just looking to change things up, and I mean it's really a great opportunity as far as making a living playing music. It's been cool so far.
Well, I mean, when you think of the army, you think of rules. When the music we play is all about breaking the rules and improvising. So, I think a good question to ask first is that you went to Manhattan School of Music, you went to New York University, two of the best schools for learning how to play this music. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is, what's um like, let's say you got some advice, or if someone told you this is what you have to do, whether it's a teacher or something, what's that maybe some advice or something you got early in your career that you've chosen to completely ignore, or I guess just redefine in your own way? What do you think that would be?
Uh, well, I would say that my philosophy up to probably even recently was to kind of like say yes to everything. I just people ask me to do a gig, it's wedding band or it's a funk band or jazz or whatever. I think that I've gotten better as a musician from that. I think that maybe I heard that from somebody early on, that advice from somebody who had a career as a musician, and that's kind of how I approach things for a long time. I think now that I'm kind of settled down and everything, like priorities change. Like, okay, I want like some family time and whatnot, so I will say no to a gig to like carve out some time for other things. But that, I feel like for decades, I was just like taking every gig that came my way.
Well, that's what they tell you, right? You have to take every single gig, don't turn down anything. But
Sure. Yeah.
it's good to turn down things, though.
Yeah, but I think just early on, it's if you're just trying to become a better musician, it doesn't hurt the more that you're playing and different style of music. And I don't know, I see both sides of it. Like it just depends what kind of musician are you trying to become. Like if you want that versatility and being able to do a lot of different things, you just kind of have to do all those things to get the experience.
Yeah, but people give you that advice to take every single gig, and I think would you say that's the most unusual thing, or what's the most unusual piece of advice anyone ever gave you about this music or being a
Mm.
musician?
Well, another thing that I feel like there's a lot of things that people say that are probably not good ideas. Like one of these things that you always hear.
Hold on, now I know we're getting to the good
Yeah.
stuff. Your
Okay.
your whole tone of voice changed. Now we're getting to the fun stuff. Let's
Well,
go there.
like you have teachers tell a student that it's like, oh, you're always a half step away from the right note or something like that, you know, and like so the idea is like, oh, if someone plays the wrong note, then they like change the note to, you know, by a half step, and they're like, okay, now I'm playing the right note. I That's one that you hear people like told when they're like in high school and stuff that I don't think it really makes too much sense.
Right, because you could always go on and develop that idea. You play a dissonant note, and even if it's a mistake, you're like, oh, okay, let me play something else that's dissonant after that. So it sounds like I intentionally, you know,
Well,
tried to do it.
I think later, once you get more experience and understand what I think is the right approach to improvisation, it's like you probably shouldn't, like, if you didn't know what that note was going to sound like before you played it, then you just should have not played that note. You know, like I think with the beginner, you know, like when they play the wrong note, they it would be better for them to just not play it and play something that they are like comfortable with, that they, you know, that they
Well,
know is going to work.
well, when you talk about this, we're also talking about, I guess you could say, quote unquote, mistakes. Like, is there anything that comes to mind that, maybe when you were playing, soloing or comping for someone, that a mistake you made that, or recording, maybe it turned out to like be, oh, this is good. This is not a mistake. Anything come to mind, you think?
Yeah, I think that definitely happens where you play. Yeah, like so there's different types of mistakes. There's a mistake where like, you know, your finger just isn't where you thought it was and you play something, like that's a mistake. But which happens, and then you can turn that into something. It might actually be like, oh, that actually is a cool idea. I feel like I do that because I tend to close my eyes a lot, and you know, sometimes you're not you're not quite where you think you are on the keyboard. But those maybe are some of the coolest notes I play when I hear them back on the recordings. So yeah, it
Oh, I get
happens.
it.
It happens.
I mean, and you do so much playing. It's like you have to, I mean, I know you've done everything, when you think about it. Well, there, not everything, but I mean, I don't think you've like, you know, played behind like a country act in, Tennessee, a singer, but I mean, you've done so much. You have to go out and play for people. You have to play for these huge audiences, right? With the jazz ambassadors,
Mhm,
you've had to play the packed jazz clubs with people. You
mhm.
never know what it's going to be, but what do you tell yourself before you start to play, before you go out? Do you have a mantra or anything that, you tell yourself before you play before you hit your first notes or before you go out on stage?
No, I think the that element of playing for an audience, you get, I think you get better at it just from experience. I think the goal is to make, you should feel the same way you do just at home in the practice room playing, or you know, in the living room, whatever, by yourself. I think when you're on stage, like it's almost impossible to like get to that point maybe of being relaxed and comfortable. But uh, to me, that's the goal. I guess the advantage, especially, I get, yeah, like most situations, the piano is set up in a way that I'm not just like straight on with the audience, you know. So I feel like I'm just in this like bubble and just doing my thing. So just that instrument, I don't know how I'd feel if I had to go out and stand in the center of the stage, you know, like guitar, you know. But I, the piano has that certain introspective feel to it, which I think makes it easier. But just from experience, you just get more and more comfortable.
Well, that's the thing too. You also have those moments where you're just happy to be playing and in the zone, uh, but sometimes you just don't want to go out and play at all, right? Like you're just like, I'm exhausted, or like what gets you through, you know, getting back into the space of, oh, okay, like this is what I'm supposed to be doing now. And like, for me, it's like if I'm not feeling like, oh, I want to go do this gig or something, and I'm there, I'm actually there, I might think about the food I'm going to eat after the gig, and then I get excited about it, and then I start to play better. Is there anything like that for you when you just don't want to be on the gig, like something that
Well,
might inspire you
I,
indirectly?
I think going into, yeah, a lot of the performances, maybe I'm not super hyped about it, but I would say for me, 99% of the time, once the music starts and like that, just yeah, if you're playing with good musicians and it's very inspiring and feels good, I would say most of the time I'm able to tap into that. And like once the music starts, it's like flip a switch and I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then it's like over before I know it because I'm just kind of like in that concentration. So I think from maintaining that, like listening to what's going on around you and doing your thing, like to me, that once it gets going, then it's over like before I know it because it's just kind of that you get in the zone.
Well, I mean, we're so inspired by, you know, all the music in general, as you're talking about. Like once you start to play, it's like, okay, and we're so influenced by other musicians and other genres we listen to, but that can't be the end all be all for what inspires us. And our music is a reflection of who we are as a person and what we've gone through. Is what Were there any, you think, philosophical or cultural things, maybe concepts that have influenced the way you play or the way you approach the instrument?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, it's like you were saying, just other jazz music and improvisers, great improvisers from the history of jazz. Listening to that stuff in the beginning, that's like your inspiration. Like, oh, I just want to like get better as a musician and be able to play like this guy so and so, and that gets you to a certain level, I think. But then, yeah, like I'm not. I feel like getting older, getting more into the philosophical stuff. I do think things like Buddhism and Taoism. Once I got into that type of thing, I do look at the playing music as more of that spiritual practice of just it's a way of it's an activity that you can get into that flow state and concentrate on and just go with the flow and let it happen. So I think there's a close connection between what I feel is like the right approach to improvisation and those Eastern philosophies, which I didn't get into till like in my 20s. So I got certain distance just listening to other being inspired by other jazz musicians, but then treating
What about
music as just my own
what about
spiritual practice.
what about, yeah, non-jazz musicians in particular? Like you're talking about Buddhism and stuff.
Musically, yeah.
Yeah. Is there any particular person that comes to name?
Well, musically, um, yeah, I don't know. I definitely was that jazz snob kind of person that was just listening to like all of jazz pianists and organists too for a long time. But I guess most recently, I got interested in kind of like experimental electronic music, and I feel like it hasn't necessarily changed my jazz playing yet, but I feel like writing new music, I've been trying to write jazz in that kind of way that's more experimental and incorporating other sounds and synthesizers and things. So it's like I like some other types of music. It's almost more like considered, it's more like in the 20th century classical type of music where it's coming from those type of composers. Like there's this guy Morton Subotnick. He made this album in the late 60s, like the first electronic music album basically, and just some movie scores from that time and things. So yeah, there's definitely other music as far as like playing piano and organ and stuff. I feel like I mostly, yeah, listen to the jazz guys, but there's other, yeah, classical stuff that's seeping into my
Yeah, well,
brain a little bit.
classical goes way back. Like, let's say,
Yeah.
you know, you have the opportunity, and we're almost there, right? With, I mean, not really, but let's say you could time travel and it's Anthony, Pocetti, quartet, trio, and you can bring back any musicians to play with, any place in the world. Where are you going? Where are you playing?
Oh, musicians that
Well,
I like.
musicians and time, musician, not just the
Yeah.
musicians, but you can go to any year or something, or
Mm,
even into the future if you want. Let's just say, let's call
yeah.
it anywhere.
Well, I still think that like in the 1960s, there's so much good, interesting music because that was kind of the tail end of jazz in a way where people were getting more experimental and John Coltrane and Elvin Jones and McCoy Tyner and the like I know that we both like those guys.
I don't know who that is. John
No,
Coltrane.
yeah, no, you never heard of, yeah. But no, but Herbie Hancock, through any decade is always trying something new, and that's something that's great about I think that those people that were around at that time. I
Now
don't know if
you
I would want to like live in that time. Like I like,
one night
YouTube
only.
and Starbucks and stuff, but
Yeah, one night only. You could bring the
yeah,
Starbucks with you. Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's. I
yeah.
mean, it's an interesting, thing to think about because you're like, okay, that's probably going to bring out to play with some of those people like that. That's going to bring out so much. What do you think? Is there any type of, you know, weather? I know, like for me, like I get really hyped up and when I'm playing outside in the summer. Is any type, what weather or nighttime or daytime, what brings out the best in your playing? Because I hate playing during the day,
Oh, during the day, yeah. Well, I somewhat
performing.
get used to it, with the army thing, we have rehearsals in the mornings a lot of times, so it's you get used to it, like trying to get into the spirit of jazz, but yeah, it really doesn't work. I think you got to be like 8 p.m. or later to like get into the good stuff.
Yeah, they should
But
just make it the law, right? That jazz is not allowed to
yeah,
be played until 8 p.m. or later.
yeah. I think that's when, when you go to see jazz, it's like the second set is always better.
Yeah, exactly. They'll either the second set or when you go to the Village Vanguard and you hear the opening set on Tuesday.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's always going to be good at the Vanguard probably, but it's like it's still like the once people get loosened up and it's like it's all you always get more experimental later on as you get more relaxed or whatever it is. But yeah, definitely um nighttime for jazz for
Yeah,
sure.
only after. Well, what do you think people notice about your playing in particular? Like, if they're like, oh, Anthony, that guy Anthony. What do you think? Something that you know. What do you think people that thing they notice about playing with you? What would you say, or you think it is? I mean, we're not mind readers, but
Yeah,
you got to guess.
I guess 'cause I've heard people I feel like people always talk about like my swing feel, like, oh, that's, that guy knows how to swing and that kind of thing. Like when because I play like organ too, and in that case, you're like driving the bus with the bass, playing the bass and comping and soloing and stuff. But
Yeah.
so it's like if you don't have a good feel for that, like it's gonna go
Oh,
nowhere.
Anthony. Yeah, they're like, oh, Anthony. He really knows how to swing that guy. Yeah.
I bet, yeah, and if anything, I would take pride in that if that is what they're saying. But I
No,
do
I
feel
would.
like I do get comments on that positively. So
Yeah, that no, that's great that people can, you know, articulate that to you. Do you think that's, I mean, no one told you that though. That there's no way like you could fully understand how to swing correctly, probably. It's just something you kind of figure out on your own, I suppose.
well, I think
Um,
it's from listening to the music, and it's I think it's transmitted in that way. Oh, and also playing with other musicians. Like if you play with a rhythm section that knows how to swing for like if you play with them for 5 minutes, you some of that gets passed on, I think. So it's just playing with musicians that can do it better than you. It's gonna absorb a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, you're a phenomenal pianist and organist. I can, attest to that. Playing with you for, so many years and everything. And even when we don't play for a long time and then play again, it's just, it's pretty seamless. Um, but you talk about playing swing and it's just something you got from the records. I mean, I know you took lessons and uh what's it called, went to school and everything and went to grad school. Is there something you wish was taught to you way early on that you kind of had to figure out later on in life through life like if there was one lesson you think you wish, oh, I wish someone had taught me about that? For
Mm,
me it would be, when it comes to I wish people had told me way early on, about improvisation that, you don't have to stick to the chord scales for each specific
mm.
chord or something like that. What do you wish someone had taught you way early on?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that I would say like just about everything you have to like figure out on your own. It's very difficult to teach someone just because you could tell someone certain things, but it doesn't really make sense to them until they figure it out on their own. So it's yeah, I feel like there's a lot of things I wish I knew sooner, but also I feel like they just come the lessons come when they're supposed to, and you figure it out eventually. Like you can't really, even 4 years of college or 6 years, whatever you do in college, it's not enough to really absorb everything. Like you might like pick up a few things here and there from the teachers. I mean, they're giving you all this information, but it takes kind of a long time for you to then
Isn't it a
rediscover it and incorporate it into
yeah,
your
isn't it
playing.
just a never ending process though, right? I mean, this is not going to end us, getting better and studying the music and just trying to play as well as we can.
Yeah, no, I don't think you ever really arrive at some final destination. There's always things, well, hopefully you have things you like about your playing, but there's always going to be things that you don't like that you're trying to like make better and or replace with new things,
Well, where would you
So
like to
it's
see, where do you want to see music education go? I mean, it's kind of systematic in terms of, you know, you have to learn these standards by this time and you have to learn how to play these. Where do you want to see it go? What do you want to see be there that's just not there at all? Like for me, I think you should have to go hear live music when
mm,
you're studying
yeah.
jazz. Like it should just be a class. Like you need to go and you need to write about it and what you liked, what you didn't like. What's one thing that you want to see that's just not there?
Mm. Well, the I feel like jazz is in a way like playing by ear, right? You're just playing melodies that you hear in your mind in a way, like if you really simplified it. And there's not really that much like if you're going to school, playing an instrument in school and thing, you're always just playing what's on the paper, I think. Maybe you're in jazz band, you get a solo, you like they tell you, okay, here's like some notes that could work for that solo. That's fine, I guess. But like I think what I did naturally myself, which I wasn't something anyone really told me to do, but I would just try to like figure out how to play. I played the trumpet a little bit in school. I started in fourth grade and everything. And trumpet and on piano, like that was kind of my talent was like kids would ask me like to play something like, oh, can you play like the Batman theme or something? And then, I'll like try to pick out the notes and like figure it out by ear. So it's like all of those moments of doing that were really training me to be able to improvise, I think, at later in jazz and other types of music. But that I feel like that should be part of learning an instrument is like have the teacher play a little melody and like have kids try to play it back like just by ear, like try to figure it out, like the ear training part. Like maybe in college, yeah, you have to take a couple ear training semesters or whatever. But like I think starting younger, you're going to be able to like learn that much quicker.
No, I definitely agree. One final question I've always wanted to, when we've seen a lot of concerts together as well. The last thing I wanted to ask you, best concert you've ever been to,
Mm.
unquestionably.
Mm. I mean, what kind of like blew my mind a little bit was the Wayne Shorter band. I was at Newport Jazz Festival and they were on like the big stage. Um, whatever that most recent iteration of the band with what was it, Patitucci and Brian Blade and stuff, and just the way that they collectively improvised together, like it was very free, but like yeah, I think that band was like carrying on that tradition that was Coltrane Quartet and Miles Davis Quintet from the 60s and stuff. And it's almost like a continuation of that. So I thought that was like very cool to get to see that. Like I feel like I was too young to see a lot of those greats before they died, but I'm glad that I got to
No, you're
see that group at least. That was cool.
you're lucky, and I'm sure in another uh maybe 40, 50 years, people are going to be saying like, "Oh, I'm lucky I got to hear Anthony
I
Pocetti play." You
don't
know,
know about that one, but yeah.
no, let's hope for you. We hope for the best, right? But thank you for being here, and
Yeah.
we'll uh we'll have a proper goodbye, and we're signing off now. Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
My
And
pleasure.
I'll hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
We'll definitely do it again.